The moment Cashin Vera looked at me and said, "The army rewards obedience, Diana. You need to learn when to walk away," I knew he had no idea who he was talking to. He thought I was just his son's girlfriend. He didn't know I commanded a brigade. And he definitely didn't know someone had already forged my name on a military order. By the time I discovered who was behind it, my soldiers were being ordered to move under my name, and I had never given that order. I had 12 minutes to stop them. So tell me, if you were in my position, would you trust the millionaire father, your boyfriend, or your own instincts? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you enjoy stories about betrayal, hidden power, and people who seriously underestimate the wrong person, subscribe and stay with me until the end. The first thing Cashin Vera did when he met me was tell me I was not qualified to command soldiers. He said it over dinner, with a glass of expensive red wine in his hand and his son sitting beside me. I was Diana Kim, a brigadier general in the U.S. Army. Cashin did not know that. He knew I was an army officer, but he had no idea what my actual position was. Lucien Vera, his son and my boyfriend, had warned me that his father could be intimidating. He had not warned me that Cashin treated every conversation like a negotiation. The dinner took place on a Thursday evening at a private restaurant in Arlington. Cashin had reserved the entire room. I arrived 10 minutes early. Lucien was waiting near the entrance. "You came," he said. "You invited me." "I know. My father can be difficult. I have dealt with difficult men before." Lucien laughed softly. "That is exactly what worries me." Before I could answer, Cashin walked in. He was 62, silver-haired, and dressed in a dark suit. He looked like a man accustomed to entering rooms after everyone else had already decided to make space for him. He shook my hand. "Diana Kim." "Yes." "Lucien says you are an officer." "I am." "Active duty?" "Yes." "How long?" "Long enough." He smiled. "Interesting answer." We sat down. Then his tone changed. "So," Cashin said, "what exactly do you do in the army?" "I command a brigade." His knife stopped. Lucien looked at me. Cashin raised one eyebrow. "A brigade?" "Yes." "How many soldiers?" "Several thousand." "That's a lot of responsibility." "I know." Cashin gave a short laugh. "I suppose the army promotes quickly these days." "Dad," Lucien said. "What?" "I am asking questions." I kept my voice calm. "The army has standards." "I am sure it does." He took another sip of wine. "But leadership in a military environment is very different from leadership in the real world." I looked at him. "What do you mean by the real world?" "Business. Negotiations. Consequences. People do not obey simply because someone gives them a title. Neither do soldiers." His expression changed. For the first time, he studied me seriously. Then, he placed a thin folder on the table. "This is a project my company is working on. I want your professional opinion." Inside was a map of a coastal logistics corridor, photographs of warehouses, and a proposed security plan. I recognized the location immediately. The port sat beside an emergency military transportation route. "The security plan is flawed," I said. Cashin folded his arms. "Explain." "The eastern checkpoint blocks an emergency lane. This warehouse is too close to the fuel transfer area. If there's a fire, you lose the loading zone." He leaned forward. "How would you fix it?" "Move the checkpoint. Separate fuel storage from general cargo. Create an alternate evacuation route." He was silent. Then he smiled. "You see? This is exactly what I mean." "What?" "You think tactical knowledge makes you a strategic thinker." "No." "You asked for my professional opinion. I gave it." Lucien quietly said, "Dad, maybe we can talk about something else." Cashin ignored him. "Diana, my son tells me he is serious about you. I am serious about him too. Marriage changes priorities. So does command." Cashin's smile disappeared. "I need a woman beside my son who understands that family comes first." "I understand family. Then you understand that military careers can become inconvenient." I knew exactly what he was doing. He was evaluating whether I would fit into his family's plans. "My career is not an inconvenience." "You are very confident." I have to be.
No.
You have to be disciplined. I am. He leaned closer. Then let me give you some advice. The army rewards obedience. Business rewards people who know when to walk away. Good advice, I said. I just don't think you know which one of us should walk away. Lucien nearly choked on his water. Cashin did not laugh. Dinner ended 20 minutes later. Outside, Lucien followed me toward his car. I am sorry. You don't have to apologize for him. I should have warned you. You did. Not enough. I stopped beside the car. Why did your father care so much about my career? He thinks anyone connected to the military could complicate his port deal. Why? I don't know. The answer came too quickly. Before I could press him, his phone rang. Cashin. Lucien answered.
Dad.
Cashin's voice was sharp enough that I could hear it. Cancel your weekend plans.
Why?
Because this relationship has become a problem. Lucien looked at me. What are you talking about? I am talking about the port. The call ended. Lucien lowered the phone. Then my secure phone vibrated. I checked the message. It came from my operations officer, Niren Holt. General Kim. Urgent. Your name appears in a private contract file connected to Vera Strategic Holdings. I read it twice. My name. Not my rank. Not my brigade. My name. I called Niren. Tell me exactly what you found. We found 3 documents. Who created them? We don't know. What do they say? They indicate that you authorized military cooperation with Vera Strategic Holdings concerning the port. I authorized nothing. I know. Who has the originals? That is the problem. What problem? The documents were built using an old army planning template. I went still. Was that template public?
No.
Who had access? We're trying to determine that. I looked toward Lucien. Does Cashin know? We don't know. I ended the call. Lucien was still beside his car. Is something wrong? Yes. What is it? Someone used my name in a military document. His face changed. Diana, I need to tell you something. I waited. His phone rang again. He did not answer. A message appeared. Tell Diana to stay away from the port. Lucien stared at the screen.
So did I.
Then I asked the question he had avoided all evening. Lucien, what exactly is your father involved in? I don't know everything. That is not an answer. I know he has been trying to buy the port for months. I already know that. Lucien swallowed. There is another investor.
Who?
Orson Vale. I recognized the name from an intelligence briefing about shell companies acquiring strategic infrastructure. Why is Orson Vale interested in this port? I don't know. Then find out. Lucien nodded. I turned toward my car. Where are you going? Back to the command center. At this hour? Yes. Are you going to investigate my father? I am going to investigate whoever used my name without permission. I drove to Fort Belvoir. The command center was quiet when I arrived shortly after midnight. Niren was waiting with a paper folder. There is one more document, she said.
She placed it in front of me.
The document was dated 3 weeks earlier. It contained a signature that looked like mine. Under it was my rank, Brigadier General Diana Kim. I stared at the page. Then I saw the final paragraph. It referenced a brigade movement scheduled for the following month. A movement that had never been announced outside my command. Someone had not only forged my name, someone had access to my operational information. I looked at Niren. Who has seen this schedule? Only authorized personnel. How many? 5. Then start with the 5. She nodded. I picked up the document again. Cashin Vera's lecture suddenly felt irrelevant. The real question was much worse. Who had been watching my brigade before I ever met him? The next morning, I stopped thinking about Cashin Vera. The forged document had changed everything. At 0530, I was in the command center with Niren Holt, my chief legal liaison. Colonel Soren Valles, my deputy, arrived 10 minutes later. These are the people who had access to your brigade movement schedule, Niren said. 5 files lay on my desk.
Soren. Niren.
Major Keisha Wren. Lieutenant Colonel Bram Ilian. Marlo Quist, a civilian logistics analyst. Anyone else? Not officially. I opened the files one by one, for we're clean. Then I reached Marlowe. His credentials had been used at 0217 the previous Tuesday. Where was he? His badge says he entered the contractor building. Did he? We don't know. I ordered the security footage. 2 hours later, we had an answer. Marlowe's badge had been used twice. The person wearing it was not Marlowe. He wore a maintenance uniform and kept his face away from the camera. That afternoon, I met Cashin Vera at his corporate office in Tyson's. Because your company is connected to forged military documents. His expression changed. That is impossible. It isn't. He walked to his desk and opened a drawer. I received these 6 weeks ago. Inside were anonymous letters demanding that he sell the port project. You refused? Yes. Why? Because the offers were below market value. That is the business reason. Cashin looked toward the window. The port sits beside an emergency military corridor. Whoever controls the surrounding property can influence access during a crisis. So you knew its strategic value. Of course. Did you report the approaches?
No.
Why? His answer was quiet. Because I thought I could handle it. Your son keeps information until he thinks he can solve the problem himself. Cashin ignored the comment. Someone has tried to access my company's network twice. Who has access? My executives, contractors, and family. Family? My stepson, Elian. Can I speak to him? Cashin hesitated. You may be surprised. That evening, Lucien was waiting outside my office. I found something, he said. What? He showed me his phone. A message read, if Diana Kim continues asking questions, the brigade moves early. When did you get this? 2 hours ago. From whom? Unknown number. Did you answer? No. Good. My father thinks Orson is behind it. Do you? I don't know. Then we find out. At the security briefing in Norfolk, I was shown photographs taken near the warehouses. Vehicles were entering after midnight. No commercial manifests matched them. One image showed crates being moved into a building listed as empty. Another showed the same maintenance uniform from the contractor facility. I asked for the original photographs. When I enlarged the second image, I saw the vehicle behind the man. A black SUV. The license plate ended in 4187. I called Cashin. Do you have a black SUV with plate ending 4187? Yes. Who uses it? My security director. Name? Rusk. Adrian Rusk was a retired Army colonel and former logistics officer. He had left the Army after an ethics investigation. Why did you hire him? He understands military logistics. Could he forge the Army template? Yes. Could he know your movement schedule? Possibly. But the timeline was wrong. The forged document appeared 3 weeks before Cashin hired Rusk. Someone had started the operation before Rusk joined the company. A payment record then caught my attention. A consulting company had paid $180,000 to an employee of the Vera Foundation 2 weeks before the first forged document appeared. The employee was Elian Vera, Lucien's half-brother. I called Lucien. Did he receive money from an outside company? Silence. Lucien. I don't know. Find out. By Friday morning, Elian's phone was disconnected. His apartment was empty. His car was still parked outside. Then Cashin's security team reported that someone had entered the Vera Foundation using Elian's credentials. Nothing had been stolen. Only one file had been opened. A file containing my name. Then my secure phone rang. Marlowe Quist, the civilian analyst whose badge had been used by the stranger.
His voice was shaking.
General Kim, I need to tell you something before they find me. Where are you? I don't know. Marlowe, stay where you are. Tell me what happened. I didn't leak your schedule. I believe you.
No.
You don't understand. His breathing became faster. Someone copied my credentials. Who? I don't know. Then what do you know? He whispered. There is a second account. The line went dead. I immediately called the cyber team. Minutes later, they found a hidden profile inside the contractor network. It carried Marlowe's name and credentials, but had a completely different activity history. Someone had created a duplicate identity. They could make their actions appear to come from Marlowe. I stared at the screen. Then a notification appeared. The hidden account had just logged in. The source was not the contractor building. It was inside our command network. Someone was watching us in real time, and whoever it was had just seen me discover them. I ordered the network isolated. Another alert appeared. The hidden account had accessed one more file, the Brigade movement schedule. I looked at Nieren. Lock down every device. She nodded. Soren entered the room. What happened? I looked at him. Someone inside this command is feeding information outside. His expression tightened. Who? I don't know yet. Then the secure system displayed a new message. You should have listened to your boyfriend's father. Cashin had told me to stay away from the port. Now someone inside my command was telling me the same thing. That was not a coincidence. Someone wanted me to believe Cashin was behind this. And that meant the real target might be somewhere else entirely. By Saturday morning, I had stopped trusting screens. Every operational device in my office had been disconnected from the network. Printed schedules were stored in a locked cabinet. Movement orders were delivered by hand. Even routine messages had to pass through 2 officers before reaching me. It slowed everything down. That was exactly what I wanted. If someone inside my command was feeding information to an outside network, I needed them to become impatient. At 0645, Nieren entered my office carrying 2 folders. We found the source of the hidden account. I looked up. Who? Marlowe Quist. I frowned. You said his credentials were copied. They were. But the hidden account was created using his administrative certificate. Could someone have stolen the certificate? Yes. Then Marlowe isn't necessarily involved.
No.
She placed the first folder on my desk. The second account was created 4 months ago. For months. That was before Cashin's port dispute became serious. Before the forged document appeared. Before I met Cashin. I opened the second folder. The account had accessed logistics information, contractor records, and emergency transportation schedules. Who authorized this level of access? No one. Then how did it survive for 4 months? That is what we are trying to determine. I turned the page. One name appeared repeatedly. Adrian Rusk. I remembered Cashin's answer from the previous day. My security director. Retired Army colonel. Military logistics specialist. I called Cashin. He answered immediately. Diana? Where is Rusk?
A pause.
Why? Because his name is attached to an unauthorized account inside a military contractor system. Cashin became silent. Are you sure? Yes. I'll find him.
No.
Don't. Why? Because if he knows we're looking, he may disappear. Cashin exhaled. I understand. Does Rusk have access to your corporate network? Yes. Does he know about the port's emergency corridor? Yes. Does he know my brigade schedule?
No.
I waited. Cashin corrected himself. Not officially. That answer was enough. I asked him to send every record involving Rusk. 20 minutes later, the files arrived. Rusk had been hired 6 weeks after the hidden military account was created. That meant he could not have created it, unless someone had brought him in later to manage something already established. I looked at Nieren. We have another problem. What? Rusk may not be the beginning. At 0930, I drove to a federal office in Baltimore for a closed intelligence briefing. The room contained 4 officers, 2 analysts, and a map of the port district. One intelligence officer pointed at several properties. Orson Vale's companies have purchased 12 parcels around the port over the last 18 months. Through shell companies? Yes. Why? To control the access roads. I studied the map. The parcels formed a corridor around the military emergency route. Not enough to control the port. Enough to control movement toward it. What happens if the brigade is redirected there during a crisis? The analyst answered. The route becomes dependent on private access points. Meaning, whoever owns those properties can delay or redirect military movement. That was the first time the larger plan became visible. Orson did not need to own the port. He needed the military to believe the port was the crisis. Then he could influence where my brigade moved. I called Niren. Find every communication between Orson Vale and Vera Strategic Holdings. We already searched. Search again. Why? Because I think we're assuming the wrong relationship. 2 hours later, she called back. You were right. What did you find? Orson approached Cashin 3 times. About the port? Yes. Cashin refused. Then Orson approached Ellie and Vera. I sat up. What did Elian agree to? We don't know. Find out. At 1500, Lucian arrived at the federal office. He looked exhausted. My father told me not to come. Then why did you? Because Elian called me. I stood. When? Last night. Where is he? He wouldn't tell me. What did he say? Lucian took out his phone and played a recording. Elian's voice came through. Lucian, if Diana asks about the foundation, tell her I didn't know what the money was for. I listened carefully. Then Elian continued. I thought it was a donor transfer. Orson said it was for veterans' housing. The recording ended. Lucian looked at me. He sounded scared. He should be. What does that mean? It means he may have been used. I replayed the recording. There was background noise. A low mechanical hum. I recognized it. Where did he call from? I don't know. I asked the intelligence team to isolate the sound. 10 minutes later, they identified it. Industrial ventilation. The same type used inside the warehouse district. Elian was near the port. We moved quickly. By 1800, federal agents located the building. It was empty. There was one vehicle inside. Elian's. The office contained financial records, shipping manifests, and a laptop. The laptop was wiped, but the paper records remained. One invoice caught my attention. A consulting company had paid Elian $180,000. The same company had paid Marlowe Quist. The same company had transferred money to a retired Army contractor. And the beneficiary of that contractor account was Adrian Rusk. 3 names. 3 separate connections. But the money all came from one source. Orson Vale. I thought we finally had the structure. Then an agent entered. General Kim, you need to see this. He led me into the back room. There was a wall covered with photographs. Photographs of Cashin,
Elian, Lucian, me,
and my brigade. Some images had been taken months earlier. One photograph showed me leaving a military facility in Virginia. Another showed Lucian entering my apartment building. A third showed Cashin meeting Orson. I stared at the photographs. This is surveillance. Yes. Who took them? We don't know. Then I saw something that made me stop. A photograph of me standing beside Niren. It had been taken inside the command center. The date was 2 months earlier. That meant someone had been watching me long before the forged document appeared. Niren stood beside me.
Diana.
I pointed at the photograph. Who had access to that room? She did not answer. Not because she didn't know. Because she understood the implication. Someone had access to our command center. That night, we returned to Fort Belvoir. I ordered a complete physical inspection of the building. At 2310, technicians found a small recording device behind an electrical panel. It had been installed months earlier. The device had been transmitting. Not constantly. Only when certain conversations occurred. We downloaded the remaining data. There were hundreds of recordings. Most were useless. Then one file played. My voice. I was speaking to Niren 3 months earlier about the brigade's upcoming training cycle. The recording ended. A second voice appeared.
Male.
Older.
Come.
Move the operation forward. Another voice answered. Not yet. The first voice said, she hasn't noticed. I froze. I knew the second voice.
So did Niren.
It was Adrian Rusk. But the first voice was someone else. Someone I had trusted enough to let into my office. The recording continued. She will notice the port eventually, Rusk said. The other man replied, let her. Then what? We make her think Cashin is responsible. I stopped the recording. Niren looked at me. This changes everything. Yes. Who is the other man? I played the final seconds again. This time, I recognized something in the background. A door closed. A security chime sounded. Then the man's voice became clearer. You should have listened to your boyfriend's father. I stared at the speaker. That sentence had been sent to my secure system the night before. Whoever had sent it knew exactly what had been said at dinner. Only 3 people had been there.
Me.
Lucien.
Cashin.
I called Lucien. He answered on the first ring. Diana? Where is your father? He's at home. Is he alone? Yes. Stay away from him. What happened? I'll explain later. I ended the call. Then I called Cashin. No answer. I called again.
Still nothing.
At 0017, his security system sent an automatic alert. Unauthorized entry. Vera residence. I looked at Nieren. We're going. When we arrived at Cashin's estate, the front door was open. The house was dark. No guards. No staff. Only one light was visible upstairs. We entered carefully. Cashin's office had been searched. Documents covered the floor. His computer was still running. And on the desk was a single handwritten note. I picked it up. The message contained only one sentence. Diana, you are looking at the wrong Vera. Then I heard a sound from the hallway. A door slammed. Someone was running. I moved toward the noise. But by the time we reached the back entrance, the person was gone. On the floor was a black access card. I picked it up. The card belonged to the Vera Foundation. But the photograph attached to it was not Elian's. It was Marlowe Quist's. I stared at the card. Marlowe had told me someone copied his credentials. Now I knew they had copied more than his credentials. They had copied his identity. And whoever was using it had just walked out of Cashin Vera's house. The access card in my hand should have belonged to Marlowe Quist. But Marlowe had never been inside Cashin Vera's house. At least, that was what his record showed. I turned the card over while federal agents secured the estate. Nieren stood beside me. His name is printed on it. I can see that. The photograph matches him. Then someone wanted us to believe Marlowe was here. She looked toward the dark hallway.
Why?
Because they knew we would find the card. That was the problem. Everything was becoming too convenient. The forged military documents. The hidden account. The photographs. The recording device. The message blaming Cashin. Now a fake access card linking Marlowe to the break-in. Someone was not simply hiding evidence. They were planting it. At 0140, investigators found Cashin in a locked guest room. He was conscious but shaken. Where were you? He pointed toward the room. They came into my office. How many? I saw one. Did you recognize him? No. Did he take anything? Cashin hesitated. Yes. What? A folder. What was in it? Contracts concerning the port. Only contracts?
He looked at me. No.
What else? A list of military contacts. My expression hardened. Whose list? People who had worked with my company. Was my name on it?
Yes.
I asked him to describe the folder.
He did.
It was the same folder he had shown me during our dinner. The one containing the port security plans. Someone had stolen it. That meant the intruder had a specific objective. Before dawn, I returned to Fort Belvoir. I did not sleep. At 0610, Nieren brought me the preliminary forensic report. The access card was created yesterday. So Marlowe's original card wasn't stolen.
No.
This is a duplicate. Can we trace the printer? Not yet. Then trace the photograph. She frowned. The photograph? Someone had to obtain Marlowe's image. An hour later, the answer came. The image came from a contractor database. But the request had been made using an executive authorization code. The code belonged to Adrian Rusk. I called Cashin. Did Rusk have access to your employee database? Yes. Where is he? I don't know. When did you last see him? Yesterday afternoon. Did he mention leaving?
No.
Then find him. I already sent someone. Don't. Cashin paused. Why? Because if Rusk knows you're searching for him, he'll run. You think he's involved. I think he has access. Cashin said nothing. Then he asked, Do you still think I am responsible? I think someone wants me to think you are responsible. That is not an answer. It is the only answer I have. By 0900, I had another problem. The false brigade movement order had been activated. Not by my command. By a civilian logistics contractor. Someone had sent instructions to prepare vehicles for an emergency deployment toward the port. I immediately canceled the movement. Then I checked who had received the order. One copy had gone to Colonel Soren Valles. Another had gone to Major Keisha Wren. A third had gone to Marlowe Quist. But Marlowe was missing. That was when I understood the purpose. The enemy was testing whether we would react to false information. If I moved the brigade, they would learn I was still vulnerable. If I ignored it, they would create another crisis. So, I did something different. I allowed the order to remain active. But I changed the destination. Only 3 people knew.
Niren, Soren, me.
The brigade would appear to move toward the port. In reality, no soldier would leave the installation. The order was bait. At 11:15, the bait worked. An external account requested access to the port's emergency corridor. The request included our false destination. I smiled. We have them. Niren looked at me.
Who?
I don't know yet. We traced the request. It came through 6 shell companies. The final server was registered in Miami. The account holder was Orson Vale. Federal agents moved immediately. But Orson was not there. His office was empty. His assistant claimed he had left for a meeting. Where? She gave us an address. A private marina. When agents arrived, they found Orson's vehicle. No Orson. Inside the vehicle was a phone. The phone contained one message. General Kim will move the brigade by 1600. I checked the time. The message had been written less than 20 minutes earlier. Someone was still watching us. Then my phone rang. Lucian. I answered. Where are you? At the Vera Foundation. Why? I found Elian. I stood. Put him on. A man's voice came through. Diana. It was Elian. Where are you? I can't tell you. Then tell me why you disappeared. I found out what Orson was doing. What was he doing? I thought the money was for the foundation. What money? The payments. From the consulting company? Yes. Who told you they were legitimate? Rusk. That name changed the room. I asked, where is Rusk now? Elian hesitated. He came to see me yesterday. What did he want? He wanted the foundation records. Why? He said they would prove Orson was laundering money. Did you give them to him?
No.
Where are they? With me. I heard a second voice in the background.
Lucian.
He's telling the truth. I asked Elian one more question. Did Rusk ever mention the army? Yes. What did he say? He said the army had ruined his life. I closed my eyes. Now we had motive. But motive was not proof. Then Elian said something else. There's another person.
Who?
I don't know his name. What does he look like? Older. Gray hair. My heart tightened. Cashin?
No.
Rusk?
No.
Then who? Elian's voice dropped. He was at the dinner. I froze. What dinner? Your dinner with my father. The room went silent. Elian continued. He was in the private dining room before you arrived. I looked at Niren. Where? In the service corridor. Did you see his face? Yes. Who was he? Elian whispered the name. I did not recognize it. But Niren did. She immediately reached for her tablet. Say it again. Bram Ilian. Niren stared at me. Bram Ilian was one of the 5 people who had access to my brigade movement schedule. He was also the officer whose personnel file I had barely questioned because he had no known connection to Cashin Vera. That changed now. I ordered his location. The answer came within minutes. Bram was not at Fort Belvoir. He had left 2 hours earlier. His vehicle was heading toward the port. I called Soren. Where is Bram? I thought he was with you.
He isn't.
Soren went quiet. Diana, what are you saying? I think Bram is compromised. Impossible. Find him. I'll send a team.
No.
I need you to stay where you are. Why? Because I don't know who else is compromised. That silence lasted several seconds. Then Soren said, "Understood." I ended the call. Niren looked at me. "You trust Soren?" "I trust his record." That wasn't my question. I looked at the 5 names on the original access list.
Soren, Niren, Keisha,
Bram, Marlowe. One of them had opened the door. One had created the duplicate account. One had leaked the schedule. But there was still something wrong. The first forged document had appeared before Bram had any obvious connection to Cashin. That meant Bram might not be the beginning either. At 1640, federal agents reached the port. Bram was gone. They found only his vehicle. Inside was a laptop containing the same hidden account that had been used with Marlowe's identity. The screen was still active. A file was open. It contained my brigade's real deployment schedule. Not the false one. The real one. I stared at it. Then a new message appeared. "You found Bram." A second line appeared.
but you still haven't found me.
Niren stepped closer. "Diana." I nodded. "I know." Another line appeared. "Ask your deputy." I looked at the screen. Then at Soren's name on the access list. For the first time since this began, I had to consider the possibility that the man helping me investigate the conspiracy was the man who had been feeding it information. But before I could act, Soren called. His voice was breathless. "Diana, don't trust the computer."
Why?
"Because I just found something." "What?" "The person who created the hidden account isn't using our network anymore." "Then where are they?" Soren took a breath. "They're using mine." The call ended, and somewhere inside my command, another device came online. The device came online from Soren's office. I was standing in the command center when the alert appeared. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then I said, "Lock the building." Niren reached for the secure phone. "Diana, if Soren is compromised, I know. What do we do with him?" "Nothing yet."
She looked at me. Why?
"Because whoever is behind this wants me to arrest him." I had learned one thing from the last 4 days. The easiest evidence to find was usually the evidence someone wanted you to find. I ordered every external connection from Soren's office isolated. No one entered. No one left. Then I requested a live camera feed. Soren was standing inside his office. Alone. His hands were visible. His computer was open. He looked directly into the camera. Then he pointed at the screen. A message appeared on my secure tablet. "Don't come in." I stared at it. "Can you trace the message?" Niren shook her head. "It came through Soren's terminal." "Then he's controlling it?" "Maybe." I called him. He answered immediately. "Diana." "Explain." "I found a second device." "Where?" "Inside my desk." "What kind?" "Encrypted communications hardware." "Was it yours?"
No.
"Touch nothing." I already moved away. "Good." "Diana, there is something else." "What?" "It has been recording us." "How long?" "I don't know." "Send me the serial number."
He did.
Niren ran it through the database. Her expression changed. This device was purchased by Vera Strategic Holdings. That brought Cashin back into the center of the investigation. I called him. He answered after one ring. "Diana? Did your company purchase encrypted communications equipment?" "Yes." "For military contractors?" "Sometimes." "Did you purchase a unit with a serial number?" Silence. "Cashin? I need to check." "Check now." He put me on hold. 2 minutes later, he returned. That unit was assigned to Adrian Rusk. "Where?" "My corporate security office." "Was it ever reported missing?"
No.
"Then someone moved it." Cashin's voice became quieter. "Diana, I think Rusk has been working against me." "I think so too." "Then why are you still investigating me?" "Because you kept too many secrets." "I know. And because someone is using your company to reach my command." "I will give you everything." "You should have done that 3 days ago." "I was trying to protect my family." "That decision made you easier to use." He accepted the criticism. "Tell me what you need." "Every transaction involving Rusk, Orson Vale, Elian, and the consulting company." You'll have it. I ended the call. Then Niren said, "We have a problem." She showed me a payment record. The consulting company had transferred money to Rusk. But the payment was made before Rusk officially joined Cashin's company. So Rusk was connected to them before Cashin hired him. Yes. Find the original contract. We searched. The contract was buried under an old procurement archive. The client was not Orson Vale. It was a defense technology company called Northbridge Vector. I recognized the name. Northbridge had once supplied emergency communications equipment to the Army. Its contract had been terminated after a procurement dispute. The project manager was Adrian Rusk, the same project that had damaged his career. I requested the old investigation. The file arrived within an hour. Rusk had not been accused of stealing money. He had accused his superiors of manipulating a procurement decision. His complaint was rejected. The contract was cancelled. His career ended. But one page had been removed from the archive. Niren noticed it. Page 42 is missing. Who removed it? Authorization code belongs to a former contracting officer. Name? She looked at the screen. Bram Ilian. I leaned back. Now Bram was connected to Rusk. But that still did not explain Orson. At 1300, federal agents brought Elian Vera to a secure interview room. I joined remotely. Elian looked exhausted. General Kim. Where is Bram? I don't know. Where did you see him? At the port. When? Yesterday. What was he doing? He was arguing with Rusk. That was new. What were they arguing about? Rusk wanted the communications hub. Why? Elian shook his head. He said Orson wanted the port, but that wasn't the real target. I sat forward. What was the real target? The emergency routing center. Niren looked at me. That facility controlled communication routing for several regional transportation and emergency systems. If someone gained control of it, they could create false emergencies. They could redirect military resources. They could make a legitimate order look fraudulent. Suddenly the forged brigade movement made sense. The port was bait. The military movement was the weapon. The communications center was the objective. Who knew about the routing center? I asked. Elian looked away. Rusk. Who else? Bram. Anyone from Orson's company? Yes. Who? I don't know his name. You saw him. Yes. Describe him. Elian hesitated. Gray hair.
Tall. Thin.
He wore glasses. My stomach tightened. Did he resemble anyone from my command?
No.
From Cashin's company? Elian shook his head. Then where did you see him? At the dinner. Again. The dinner. Asked him to describe where the man had been sitting. Near the service corridor. Was he alone?
No.
Who was with him? Elian looked at me. Your boyfriend.
Lucien.
I felt the room change. Are you saying Lucien met this man?
No.
Lucien didn't know him. Then why were they together? They weren't. Elian corrected himself. The man was watching Lucien. That was worse. After the interview, I called Lucien. Where are you? At my apartment. Are you alone? Yes. Do not leave. Diana, what happened? I need to ask you something. Okay. Did you see a tall man with gray hair at the dinner? There was silence. Then Lucien said, yes. I closed my eyes. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't think it mattered. Who was he? I don't know. Did he speak to you? Briefly. What did he say? He asked whether you were really a general. My pulse quickened. What else? He asked how long you had known my father. Did he ask about my brigade?
No.
Are you sure? Yes. Then Lucien said something that changed everything. He knew your full rank.
How?
I don't know. I ended the call. Niren looked at me. Diana, we need to know who that man is. I agree. We searched the guest list from the restaurant. No match. Then we checked security footage. At 18:30, we found him. He had entered through the service entrance 43 minutes before I arrived. The camera captured his face clearly. Niren froze. I know him. Who? She enlarged the image. The man was not Orson Vale. Not Rusk.
Not Bram.
He was a former Army contracting officer named Calder Voss. I knew the name. He had been involved in the North Bridge procurement dispute.
He had testified against Rusk.
And 3 years earlier, he had disappeared from federal records after leaving government service. I called the investigator, handling the old case. Where is Calder Voss? The investigator paused. We thought he was dead. I stared at the screen. What? His vehicle was found in Virginia 2 years ago. No body. I looked at Niren. The man we had been chasing had been officially missing for 2 years. Yet he had stood inside my dinner room 43 minutes before I arrived. And now I understood why. He had not come to meet Cashin. He had come to study me. At 1745, another alert appeared. The false Brigade movement order had been cancelled.
By me.
Except I had not cancelled it. Someone had used my authorization code. Niren looked at me. Diana, that's impossible.
No.
I picked up the secure phone. It's possible.
How?
Because they don't need my password anymore. She looked at the screen. They have a copy of your authorization?
No.
I looked towards Soren's locked office. They have been learning how I make decisions. The next message appeared. We don't need to control your brigade. We only need you to move it. Then another line appeared.
Port.
1800 hours. I checked the clock. We had 12 minutes. I stood. Get me the brigade commanders. Niren reached for the phone. And Soren? I looked at the locked office. Bring him out. What if he's involved? Then we'll know. The door opened. Soren stepped into the corridor with his hands raised. He looked directly at me. Diana, listen to me. Do not move the brigade to the port. I wasn't going to. His face tightened. Then, why did your system just issue the order? I turned toward the operation screen. The order was already transmitting. Hundreds of vehicles were being prepared. But the transmission contained one detail I had not authorized. A route through the emergency corridor. The exact route Orson's companies controlled. Someone wanted my brigade on that road. I looked at Soren. Then, at Niren. Stop the movement. We're trying. Don't try. I stepped toward the command console. Stop it. The system rejected the command. Authorized by General Diana Kim. I stared at my own name. Then, I understood the real trap. They were not trying to steal my command. They were trying to make it appear that I had ordered a military operation that I never gave. And if the brigade moved, I would be responsible for whatever happened next. The order was already moving. Across the command center, screens displayed vehicle assignments, departure times, and route confirmations. My name appeared beside every authorization. I had not issued the order.
Shut down the network, I said.
Niren looked at the technicians. Do it. The first attempt failed. A second attempt failed. Then Soren stepped forward. Use the physical override. I looked at him. Will it work? It has to. He moved to the emergency console and entered a manual command. The screens went black. For 5 seconds, nobody spoke. Then the backup system activated. The false order appeared again. I understood immediately. This isn't a software problem. Niren nodded. They built redundancy into it. They expected us to disconnect the network. Soren looked at me. Then they know our procedures. Yes. I turned toward the operations staff. Cancel every movement verbally. No electronic orders. Officers moved immediately. Phones rang. Vehicles stopped. Drivers were ordered to remain in place. Within minutes, the brigade's movement had been frozen. But the damage had already been done. A civilian emergency system had received the same order. A second system followed. Then a third. Someone was making it look as though the army had activated a legitimate emergency response. Niren came toward me. Diana, federal authorities are asking whether the order is authentic. Tell them it isn't. They want confirmation from your command. Give it to them. She made the call. I looked at Soren. You said you found a device in your office. Yes. Did you remove it?
No.
Good. Why? Because I want them to think we still don't know what it is. He understood. You want to use it. I want them to use it. We returned to his office. The communications device was still hidden inside the desk. Technicians placed it inside an isolation container without touching the controls. The device was transmitting. Not to Orson Vale. Not to Rusk. To an external relay. The relay address changed every few seconds. Niren watched the data. Can we follow it? Eventually. Do it. For the next 20 minutes, we allowed the device to transmit harmless information. A false update. A false route. A false statement that the brigade was preparing to move toward the port. The enemy received it. At 1827, a response appeared. Move the second team. I looked at Soren. What second team? He shook his head. I don't know. Then federal agents called from the port. General Kim, we have movement. Describe it. 3 trucks leaving a private warehouse. Destination. The emergency routing center. There it was. The real target. The port had been bait. The brigade had been bait. The emergency routing center was the objective. I ordered federal agents to intercept the trucks. But the enemy had prepared for that. 2 vehicles turned north. 1 continued toward the center. The driver abandoned it 6 blocks away. Inside the truck were communications devices, forged credentials, and explosives. The situation had become an attempted attack on critical infrastructure. I authorized the federal response. At 1905, the routing center was secured. No one was injured. But the operation was not over, because we still did not have Calder Voss. And I knew he was the person who had designed the larger structure. I ordered investigators to follow the financial records. The trail led through Northbridge Vector, then through an inactive defense contractor, then to a private account in Miami. The account belonged to Orson Vale. That connected Orson to Voss. But it did not explain Rusk. At 1940, Rusk called. I answered. Where are you? Safe. That isn't an answer. I am outside Richmond. Why? Because Voss wants me dead. I said nothing. Rusk continued. He used me. You helped him. Yes. Why? Because I thought he was exposing corruption. You compromised military operations. I know. You used my brigade. I know. People could have died. His voice broke. I know. I asked him where Voss was. I don't know. Then tell me what you do know. Rusk took a breath. Voss was never interested in the port. I know. He wanted control of emergency routing. I know. He needed the army to create a false movement so his people could enter the system during the confusion. We stopped them. Yes. Why did you call me? Because there is one more thing. I waited. Bram Ilian was not working for Voss. That surprised me. Then who is he working for? Me. I looked at Niren. Rusk continued. I recruited Bram to help me expose Voss. Then why did he disappear? Because Voss discovered him. Where is he? I don't know. Is he alive? I don't know. I ended the call. 10 minutes later, Bram was found. He had been hiding in a storage facility outside Norfolk. He was alive. And he had something we desperately needed. A recording. Bram handed it to federal investigators. It showed Calder Voss speaking with Orson Vale. Voss was explaining the entire operation. The general is predictable, he said. Orson asked, what if she refuses to move? She won't. How do you know? Because she protects her soldiers. That sentence stayed with me. They had studied me. They knew I would move resources if I believed soldiers or civilians were in danger. They had mistaken responsibility for predictability. Voss had built his plan around my sense of duty. That was his mistake. Bram's recording continued. Orson asked, and Cashin? Useful distraction. His son. Another distraction. Rusk. Useful until he isn't. I looked at Cashin's name on the investigation board. He had been manipulated too. His arrogance had made him easy to blame, but he was not the architect. Then another voice entered the recording. Elian. He was asking why they were involving the Vera Foundation. Voss answered, because Diana already suspects the family. That was the final confirmation. The entire dinner had been part of the setup. Cashin's lecture. The port proposal. The anonymous warnings. The forged documents. They wanted me emotionally connected to the Vera family before the investigation began. They wanted me to see Cashin as the obvious enemy. And it had almost worked. At 22:30, federal agents found Caldervos at an abandoned office building outside Alexandria. He did not run. He was sitting at a desk with a cup of coffee. When I arrived, he looked at me and smiled. General Kim. I sat across from him. You studied me. Yes. You studied my brigade. Yes. You used Cashin's company. Yes. You used Rusk. Yes. You used my boyfriend.
No.
I paused.
What?
I never used Lucien. Then why did you watch him? Because I needed to know whether you would trust him. You already knew the answer.
No.
Voss leaned back. You trusted him enough to investigate his family. That was a mistake. It was. But you made one too. He smiled. What? You assumed I would move the brigade because you knew what I valued. He looked at me carefully. You did move.
No.
His expression changed. I stopped the movement. You had no choice. I had several choices. He said nothing. I continued. You expected me to obey the electronic order because it carried my authorization. Instead, I verified it through command channels. You could have delayed the response. I didn't. You could have lost time. I didn't. You could have moved the brigade. I didn't. For the first time, Voss looked frustrated. You don't understand what I was trying to expose. I understand. No, you don't. You wanted to expose corruption in military procurement. Yes. You decided that gave you the right to manipulate military operations. I had evidence. You had anger.
He stared at me.
I continued. You could have given investigators the evidence. Instead, you created a false emergency and endangered people.
His jaw tightened.
People ignore the truth unless you force them to see it. That is not justice. What is justice then? Evidence. Due process. Accountability. He laughed once. You sound like Cashin. No. I stood. I sound like an officer. The investigation continued for months. Voss was charged with conspiracy, unauthorized access, fraud, and interference with critical infrastructure. Orson faced charges related to the financial network and attempted acquisition scheme. Rusk cooperated with investigators, but still faced prosecution for his role. Bram was cleared of the central conspiracy after his evidence established his cooperation with investigators. Marlowe Quist was cleared entirely. The duplicate identity had been created without his knowledge. And Cashin Vera finally gave federal investigators everything he had withheld. The port acquisition was suspended. The surrounding properties were placed under independent review. The emergency routing center received new security protocols. Most importantly, my brigade never moved under the false order. No soldier was injured. No civilian was killed. That was the result I cared about most. Several weeks later, I stood on the parade field at Fort Belvoir. The investigation was no longer the center of my day. Training had resumed. Schedules were normal. The soldiers were back to doing what they had trained to do. Lucien arrived that afternoon. He stood outside the restricted area until I finished my briefing. When I walked toward him, he smiled. My father wants to apologize. He already did. He wants to do it properly. I laughed. That sounds like him. He also sold the port project. I heard. He donated part of the proceeds to veterans' housing. I heard that too. Lucien looked at me. You were right about him. About what? He thought money gave him authority. I nodded. And now? He thinks responsibility gives you authority. That is closer. Then Cashin arrived. He wore a simple suit. No entourage. No security team. He stopped several feet away. General Kim. Mr. Vera. I owe you an apology. You already gave me one. Not this one. He took a breath. When I met you, I thought your career was an obstacle to my son's future. And now I understand that your career is part of who you are. I said nothing. He continued. I judged you before I knew you. Yes. I was wrong. Yes. Lucien smiled. Cashin extended his hand. I shook it. There was no dramatic reconciliation. No sudden friendship. Just acknowledgement. That was enough. The following Monday, I returned to my office before sunrise. A new movement schedule sat on my desk. This one was real. It had been verified through every channel. I signed it. Then I looked through the window at the brigade forming outside. For 6 weeks, people had tried to make me doubt my command. They used money, family, technology, forged documents,
Fear.
None of it worked because command was never about being impossible to deceive. It was about recognizing when something was wrong and having the discipline to stop before the mistake became irreversible. Cashin had underestimated me because he thought an army officer was someone who simply followed orders. Orson underestimated me because he thought soldiers were pieces that could be redirected. Voss underestimated me because he thought he understood my priorities. They were all wrong. I did not command a brigade because people obeyed me. I commanded because they trusted me to make decisions when the situation became difficult. And when the real test came, I did not choose pride. I did not choose revenge. I chose the soldiers. That was why the brigade stayed where it belonged. Under my command, safe, and mine to lead. If this story reminded you that confidence, money, and influence mean nothing without accountability, subscribe for more stories where underestimated people take back control and let the consequences speak for themselves.